Oh my God. Yes.
Bring a little heat to the hands.
Okay.
To your heart center. Your shoulders will go back and down. Your eyes will gently roll up and back. Inhale. Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Inhale. Ad Gadadame, Jagat Gadadame, Sat Gadadame, Siddhi Gurudev Viname. Ad Gadadame, Jagat Gadadame, Sat Gadadame, Siddhi Gurudev Viname. Ad Gadadame, Jagat Gadadame, Sat Gadadame, Siddhi Gurudev Viname. Inhale. And exhale. Let it go.
Ooh, that second part.
So the first part is like you're tuning in, calling in all of your wisdom, all of your guides. And then the second part is a prayer protection. And you kind of like see it like a compass that goes around you, protecting you in all different directions.
So can you say them both slowly because I do tune in with Om Namo, but I don't guide it because I never went through it's just like more of like my own inner.
Which is what, honestly though, that's what it is. I say it all the time. So the original Om Namo Gurudev Namo meant that you were calling in like all of the gurus through Kundalini. Like you were going into that lineage and you were calling in all of their wisdom. And I don't think that's what you're doing. You're calling in your wisdom.
Exactly.
You're calling in your guides, your angels, what you need to hear, what you need to know. And so doing it for you is all you need to do. You don't have to do it through the lineage. And
no, I agree. And I also didn't do the Kundalini training. So I just think out of respect for that practice and understanding that it is such a sacred teaching.
Yeah.
But I do when I'm doing my own personal practice, I always tune in. And I always tune in before I speak, before I do anything.
Gabby used to talk about that. So back when she was into Kundalini, she was always like, you tune in behind. And she was like, and if you're teaching to a crowd that they can handle the tune in with them. But if not, tune in for them.
Ooh, that's really great. And I do think the reason why there is this kind of intimidation where I'm just like, it feels so intimidating. And honestly, I think a lot of these spiritual practices can feel that way. And that is why I've always had this strong gravitational pull towards you and towards certain people in this space. And I say certain because I think just because you're a spiritual teacher or you are, you practice spirituality, it doesn't connect with everyone. And I feel like it's really important to work with your people and to really learn from the people that you connect very deeply to. And, even right before we started, I was like, well, aren't you supposed to do this thing? And it's like, with like Sage and Palo Santo, right?
Yeah. And it's like, you got to tune into yourself. But I think also as a teacher, I think what's important for us to remember also is that like, we don't want to preach to the people also already understand us. And so we want to be able to make sure that whatever we're teaching can be opened up so more people can find their way in. Because ultimately, the more people doing Pilates, doing meditation, whatever it is better for the world. And so when we have these like very strict guidelines about like, this is what you need to do. And like, you have to be in the turban and all these things. It's like, well, then you might miss a whole lot of people who can be really changed by a practice, right? It's like, I joke, again, back to your workouts, it's like, I can do them in jeans sometimes. Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure like Joseph Pilates would not be proud of that.
Right.
But at the end of the day,
so true.
I don't miss a day. Right? Because it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be consistent.
Consistent.
And I think that is, we weaved, but I think...
we're going to weave and ebb and flow.
But I think that that's like an important thing that when you have like these spiritual teachings is like, we're not the Buddha on the mountaintop. And so we want to make sure that we are speaking to people who can hear our message and in a way that more people can hear our message, because that is how we will create more on the planet and help
Mm.
more people. I talk about, Gingersnaps, where we first met.
Yes.
I was like, not at all that way. I was like, it is perfection. Every ingredient is perfect. Like, I was so intense. And then you had Juice Press, and Marcus was my friend at the time. And Juice Press was like using cashews and agave and lots of fruit. And I'm like, no, that's not the way. That's not the way. And I thought that I was like the epitome of like what was going to change the world. But in reality, he was, because he met people where they were. And he was able to open up so many more people to understanding the benefit of plants and all of that kind of stuff, that he had the bigger impact, even though my product was the cleaner one. And so his work was bigger than mine. And I think that that was like a huge lesson I learned from Gingersnaps, is like, make it accessible so people can do it, not so they're scared of it. Don't speak to the people who are already doing it. Speak to the people who need to find it.
Oh, that is so good. I feel like I hope so many people hear that message, because I think just to bring it back. So I met you when you had Gingersnaps, and I loved Gingersnaps. I really did.
Yeah.
Her face. And you said that is today, or was it yesterday?
Yesterday
the 8-year?
was I closed it 8 years ago. It was the last day 8 years ago yesterday.
Wow.
Which part of why I love Instagram. The memories are just amazing.
I know.
Yeah. 8 years ago, which is just wild, which means I've been doing this like full time for like 7.5 years, which is also wild. And you're one of the first people who came to me.
I know.
Which is also it's also crazy.
But I just think about those days when you had Gingersnaps, and I think just from like the beginning of it, like you were so meant to do like this work. Like you were doing this work, and we'll really dive into your practice, your teachings, and how you're working with your clients today. But you were doing all the things on me then.
Yeah. I mean, that's how come you came to me, because it made sense. Like, I was always coaching everyone. Like, I wasn't in the kitchen. Like, I didn't belong in the kitchen. Like, that was not where I was supposed to be. It was like literally like my biggest fear when someone didn't show up, if I had to go in the kitchen and make everything. But I was there to help and talk to people about like their lives and stuff like that. And we also did A Course in Miracles. We had Miracle Mondays, and we had moon workshops, and we like did all that stuff, and I think about why I created Gingersnaps back then. It was to create community and just to create a place where like people felt better. And one of the reasons why I closed Gingersnaps is I recognized that like we were doing all these cleanses and we were doing all this restrictive eating, and like we were encouraging that. Yeah. And this idea of perfection, going back to what I was just saying before, and like you have to eat this way, and you have to be, and it was just from someone who came from really bad disordered eating, I was like watching it happen in front of me, and I was like, I created this not because I wanted a restaurant. My husband's a chef. Like, he wanted a restaurant. I created it because I wanted to help people feel better. And I was watching people get like addicted to the cycle of cleansing all the time. And I was like, this is actually not making people feel better. This is making people feel worse. And the success of this business model only works if I'm hurting people in some way. And like, it was like every time you get a win, right, which is like a cleanse sale, it'd be like, oh, like, and ultimately that is a big part of why I let it go. But the other part that's so funny about talking about Gingersnaps is that, so Nicole would always come to Gingersnaps, right? Which is so interesting, because you were like working on your website there. She was working on her website there. Like, that's just like, it was a great place, and it was a great community. And there's so many things I miss about it. And like, people don't realize I say this often, but it's like, you can have to let go of something that you love, and it's still the right thing to do. And that was a really big lesson also for Gingersnaps. But in that, I remember her saying to me,
Nicole from Bonberry.
Yeah. I remember she once said to me, Jamie, I want to open up like a market, just like this, like a market. I'm like, and I looked at her, I'm like, you will, and it's going to be so much better than this. And the truth is, it is. And it's so amazing. And I remember I went there, it was probably like, and I remember when I closed, people were like crying, sending me emails, like so upset. How could I do this? And I remember going to Bonberry one day and having this moment of like, oh, what if she closed? Like, I would be so upset. And I finally understood like why people were so upset that I closed. And I had this moment for 1 second where I was like, maybe I was open too early, because Bomber is a very similar version of what I had. I'm like, so this is what it would have been if it was successful. Like, it would have been without the seeding, without that, because that was the part that made also Gingersnaps really hard, was the whole seeding aspect of it. And I was like, oh my God, it wasn't supposed to happen. Because I had this moment of being jealous, right? Of like, this is what it could have been if I did it, if I didn't listen to Will and I didn't have that whole other part and it was just to go food. And then I'm like, oh my God, it had to do it that way, because why Gingersnaps was magical was actually the community aspect of me talking to the clients. And so in order for me to be doing what I'm supposed to do in the world, that had to close. And it was like this really beautiful moment of like taking like this moment of jealousy to recognize, I get it. I get why it all happened, Those are always good moments.
I think that to me is like the definition of a spiritual practice. Like being able to be so conscious and self-evolved and self-aware enough to recognize that you're feeling jealous, right? Like jealousy, it could be very ugly, right? But being able to see it and then to choose to also to shift your perspective to why you had to go through that. Like, to me, that is just what it means to embody a spiritual
That's a lot of
practice.
the Kabbalah to me, right?
Yeah.
Like the tikkun, right?
Right.
It's like the whole idea is, but the trick, I think, of when we know that we're really in our practice doing it well, is we can see it before we have the other side. So it's like when I'm in it and you're closing Gingersnaps, let's say, for example, and you're in that part of the story, you don't see all the success that happens yet. You're still in that certainty that it's going to happen. And so it allows each bad moment to actually be neutral, because it becomes part of that bigger moment. It's and really, really seeing that. And so like it, and I don't think that we gloss over the feelings. Like, we're still allowed to cry. We're still allowed to be upset. Like, my nanny just left. So she's been with us since he was 2 months old. He's now 4 months and 2. He's 4 years and 2 months old. And she lived with us during the thick of it, of like the weirdest time in the world, right? And she's been through so much with us, and she decided that she was retiring and she was done. And I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried. And it felt amazing and cathartic. And like for months I was crying. She gave us a big warning, but I wasn't crying because I didn't think something amazing was going to happen on the other side. I was crying because it was a beautiful chapter that was now ending.
Yeah.
And I think back when I wasn't in such a spiritual place, I would have been crying because we're never going to find another person. What's going to happen? And going through that. But now it's like, and I didn't have anyone lined up. I didn't know anything that I was going to do. And I wasn't sure. And you hear some terrible stories out there.
Yeah.
But I was able to get to the fact that it works out amazing. And that actually allowed me to feel the incredible pain that was happening in the moment. And I think that that's actually a big part of a spiritual practice. Is it's not that you like are toxically positive and you jump over those painful moments. You actually get to really feel them.
Yeah.
And you feel them for the moment, and they're so beautiful because it shows you that you're alive.
Yes.
And like all of our emotions, I think, are part of the spectrum, and we want to feel all of them. The problem is when we think those bad ones are going to outlast the good ones, or we think they're going to keep on going and they're never going to end. And then that's when we're crying over nothing. But we're allowed to cry over the pain of the moment, knowing it's the moment.
Right.
And it makes it really beautiful because you get to feel like a good cry feels good.
Oh, I am the queen of a good cry, a happy cry, a medium cry.
Yeah.
I have to feel all the feels. And a lot of my process is like allowing the anger to really come up. A lot of anger.
A lot of anger. And I think that that's okay. And I think that like, as long as we understand how to work with the anger, and what do they say often? Like, underneath the anger is usually grief.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's allowing the anger to come up so that I can discover what's underneath that. And if I just avoid the anger then the underneath thing is just festering, growing, and creating so much more toxicity in the body that it doesn't help. It's like, where those full moons? Everyone's like, oh, the full moon makes me so emotional. It doesn't make you emotional. It makes the thing that like has actually been underneath. There's this beautiful light that's been shining on it. And in that, I can now see what I need to change, what I need to heal, what I need to like work through so that I can get to that other side.
Yeah. What you need to see. I feel like when I started working with you, like, I think the reason why I mean, I just think about those sessions, Jamie. Oh, you've witnessed like all of me, like every element, every layer. But I felt so safe with you and just like uncovering the stuff that I had pushed down. And I think just knowing, I mean, even thinking about like where I am now, like knowing that I wanted to embody this version of myself, but talking through, moving through, and having your, I mean, I like when I think about just the way that you work with people, like you just let it all kind of unfold and let it be and let it come out. But then the way that you guide is so nurturing and warm and grounded and strong.
Thank you.
And like no BS, like you say what you need to say. And sometimes it's hard to hear.
And I think that we have to remember that like softness is not actually always the nicest thing. Because it doesn't necessarily help us get unstuck. And everything that, one of my biggest gifts is I think I'm a true projector, right? And so like I see people and I can really, really see it. And so knowing that some people might find it harsh that I'll bring it up, but it's like, then you know what you need to work through, you know what you need to heal, you know what you need to address. And if not, it's like this whisper that's always here. And like, as the person who's working on themselves, we know it. Yeah. And we're trying to skirt through making the no, don't see it. No, don't see it. No, don't. And that's exhausting.
Yeah.
When someone finally says, let's look at it. And guess what? It's not that bad. And half of what you've been feeling and what you've been going through actually is your thoughts about it being that bad, when the thing actually isn't that bad. You're okay.
We take it to a totally different dimension.
We take and we make up so many stories and so like, and listen, we all do it. Like, and even when you have like a spiritual practice and you're really doing the work, you still do it.
Yeah. You
just come back quicker.
That is damn true.
And that's really important because like we are not looking for perfection. I think, I almost think when we don't do it, it means that like we're not living on our edge. And there's a lot that people are always like, well, you can't always be going after something new. Yes, you can. You're a human being. Yes, you can. We're only here once. Go for it.
Wait, this is so funny. So on my walk here, I had this feeling of it is like this constant quest to want to evolve and want to grow and want to really step into the highest version of yourself. And I think today I was just like, I'm really tired. And I was like, what if you don't? Like,
I did. So let me tell you, last year was an interesting year for me. Worst year of my life. Not worst year of my life.
It was a hard year for me.
It wasn't the worst year of my life. It was a hard year. It was a hard year. And part of why it was hard, I knocked off all the things I was supposed to get done. I did all the things, made the numbers, did the things. And guess what? I didn't work on myself at all. I didn't let myself feel my lows. I didn't let myself go through. I didn't do any work on myself. It's the first year, and I don't even know how long.
Really?
I was so busy. So when I say didn't work on myself, I still did my practice. I still did my things. It was probably the longest I've done. I went without Melissa. I was joking around. I don't know who I'm looking at, but when
you're looking at our people.
But I know that like last year I did the least amount of your workouts. And that meant that I wasn't taking the best care of myself. I wasn't working on me. Like when I'm doing your workouts, one of the things I love about your workouts, let me just do this for a moment, is you get me to think about the little muscle. You get me to think about like, I become almost in awe of the fact that like I have a body, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I know, like, no, reach it out longer. And like, oh, I feel something over there. Like, oh, and it really, really connects me to my physical body. Like, you've taught me how to walk. I don't think you realize that. Like, I also like on a treadmill and everything, because you did, like, even that's not even your thing really, but you talked about how like you can feel all the muscles moving when you do it. So like everything I do in movement with my body is so much better because I have this, your voice connecting to me to all the little things. And so when I do your workouts, I'm not like, oh, I got to get tighter. I do get tighter, but that's actually not it. It's like more of like a grounding inside of my body that's really important. And so when I am not doing your workouts daily, it literally is a huge sign to me that I am not taking care of me. And I'm not realizing how important I am in all the things that I want to do in the world. Like, I'm part of it. And so sometimes, like last year, I just had so many clients and so much work and so much stuff that I put myself behind all of it. I was so taking care of everyone else's stuff that I really, and I had a 3-year-old, you know, and so like I just wasn't in me. And I think that that is when, and I didn't have like, we moved into this like dream apartment for me. And it was like, okay, I did it. And that's why I stopped doing the work. I did it. And I think that we're actually supposed to continuously evolve. We're supposed to continuously look for an elevated up-level version of ourselves over and over and over again. Like, that is why we're here. That's the point of life, is to keep on evolving to be these better versions of ourselves. Now, if you are miserable during it and you're like, I'll be happy when, then that's not what I'm talking about. Like, that's actually not what I'm talking about. I'm saying, let's keep on up leveling. Let's love me now and know, look how much further I can go and look how much more I can do and how much more I can like learn about myself and understand myself and like see myself. Like, I really realized this year, like so much of the way I get, we talked about this, I think a while, I think maybe it was even on Instagram. It's like, I talk about how I rarely get like in my bitter self, right, as a projector. It's like I can feel myself super tight and super like this. And it's not, if I let myself stay in that, I don't work on that when that comes up, then I don't get bigger, I get smaller. And so it's like we have to continue to keep on growing and keep on reaching for me personally, I know this is going to sound terrible as someone who really is deeply spiritual, I often need a material thing to get me to be motivated to do all the work. And that's okay.
Can you give an example?
So like my apartment that I really, really wanted, that was a really big year of growth. So it wasn't last year, because last year I moved into the apartment, but the year before was an amazing year because I had this materialistic thing that I wanted. And I wanted to step into the version of me that had it. And who was she? And how did she carry herself? And like, where did she go? And like, what opportunities did she put herself in? And so I really owned that. And it got me into the apartment, right? And it really was beautiful. And it felt amazing because I wasn't waiting to feel that way about her. Once I got the keys, it was the entire journey. I felt like her. And I really loved that. And then we got the keys. And I literally was like, and I'm done. And I really it's amazing. Like, I can't remember, like, again, like I was a philosophy major. Like, I've been working on myself. Like, my mom will joke around. She's like, you've been working on yourself since the day you came out of the womb. Like, she's like, you do crystals in your hands. She's like, you're doing it all. But in all seriousness, like, it was the only year that I didn't. And it's funny because I still attained material things and I still attained like the goals, but this was like nothing. And like this year, so like at the end of last year, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm like going in. So I'm like doing all the work now. And it feels so amazing. And it's not attached to necessarily goals yet, but it's just about like getting to know me deeper because there's always more to open up to. There's always more to find out.
I, first of all, respect that you shared that so much because I very much relate to just, I think coming from nothing and always being so aware of the things that I didn't have, but I wanted. I like very much in this place in my life when I work towards something or I want it, I am so, I'm proud and I work towards it. And I do the same where it's already mine. It's already in there. I'm fully stepped into my future self. But one thing that I have been trying to do is even when, okay, let's just say I want my dream apartment. I want like the things that I want. I'm not going to be afraid that I want those things. I used to feel like, like what I have right now isn't enough and I can't wait to have that thing. And then now I can catch myself to be like, you know what, honey, this is it right now. So like you make the most of what it is and what you have in front of you right now. And I don't know, like and honestly, I feel like I've been giving more like love to my home and like making it feel more like me and feeling more grounded in my place. But I just like that you shared that materialistic part because I think we all have elements of it.
Yeah, we're human beings. Like we're in the 3D. So like it's okay. Like we want to experience all of what we're here to experience. I think the difference is it's not even like, okay, girl, like this is what you have now, be happy with it. I think it's more of like being in deep, deep appreciation for all of it and still wanting the more at the same time and being able to hold both of those at the same time, I think actually is the work because like when I'm saying like last year was such a hard year, like there was nothing I was trying for. So it was like I was complacent.
Ooh.
I was like, I did all the work. I got it. I'm good. Mm-hmm. I was not good. We're not like, it's not that we're like looking for problems to solve with ourselves all the time, but it's like, if we're not like, we're here to become the best version of ourselves and whatever we can do to motivate that. Because like material things, like the reason why we want the material things is actually has nothing to do with the boot. It has to do with who we think we are that gets to wear the boot. And so when you use material things to help you to connect to that, so that there's like the subconscious mind always works in association. And so if I associate this apartment that I'm looking to move into for you, right, with a version of me that has done certain things, and I can really connect to that and I can use that energy now, then I can still appreciate where I am, knowing that's what I want, and then really stepping into who I become to be in that. And because I'm already feeling it, I don't have to rush the timeline. I don't have to rush it because I feel it right now. And ultimately, all the things that we want are really just like sort of reminders of how we want to feel. But to do it in a more long-term way, we keep on attaining the thing. And that's how I think of like the material things as being okay. And not even just the material things, whether it means that like you're in a career and it's not even like you want to buy more things, you just want to keep on going up and up, like that's okay too. Because you're connecting to that higher version of yourself that can hold it, that can create it. And who is that version of you? And we're here to, every day there's a new version. My husband will say every hour sometimes.
Same, sis. Let's just keep it 100. Can you guide anyone who's listening who feels lost, disconnected to themselves, like where you would even start with like some steps into uncovering like your truest, most authentic self?
I think you want to sit and notice the moments that you're happy. Notice when you're in joy. And what are you doing? Who are you around? What is that feeling? Once you kind of can connect to that and how you want to feel, you can start to look for it and think about other things that you could be doing that can bring that feeling to you more and more. So again, when you're working with the subconscious mind, it's like if I put something, like, if you ever notice, like, someone said, so my husband had a work meeting, and my husband's like the nicest man in the world. And so he says to me, so blah, blah, blah said that he thinks I'm nefarious. I'm like, nefarious? I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, that's wild. I'm like, I would never think that. We had this whole conversation about the word nefarious. I've literally heard it now 6 million times since then. And everything I'm watching, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much this word was used, right?
I don't think I've ever heard it.
You're going to hear it all the time now. So will everyone who's listening. But the thing is that like the way it works is like you put something in front of the mind and sort of like the cognitive mind, right? The conscious mind. And then the subconscious mind looks for it because it's all about association. So I just talked about it. So now I'm subconsciously looking for it all the time. Mm-hmm. So if I stop and I notice like when I'm in joy, right? And I sit with it and I'm like, this is the feeling. And I sit with it more and more and more. I will only be looking for more opportunities to feel that way. And of course, on the other side of that is when you're also going down, the dark side, you can do the same thing.
Right.
We get to choose it. And so it's like, if you're feeling stuck or you're feeling out of that, start to notice when you feel alive, when you feel joy, when you feel happy, and look for more moments of that.
I love that. And that it's honestly feels so simple, right? And I think that is the beauty of it, that it doesn't have to be this thing that feels outside of you or overcomplicated, or you have to do all these crazy things to kind of get there.
Yeah. And then, of course,
let's get to the work. Let's talk about the work, Jamie, because you do a lot of work. Like your practice is super in depth. I don't know if it still is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, when we're talking about like true healing, I think there are 3 different levels that it has to happen on, which is going to be the cognitive and the subconscious and the energetic. And you have to work on all 3 of those. And that is where you're consciously making a choice. And again, only 10% of us really acts from the conscious. Like only 10% of our actions are conscious, right? If even. Let's be honest, if even, right? And so, but still, you want to be able to direct something. So you want to be able to have that moment. But really, so much of the work is going to be in the subconscious mind or in the energetic body, both of those together. And so a lot of the work means that you have to continuously work in that subconscious mind in order to make that change last, in order to make that autopilot. So if I'm normally piloting, you know what I mean?
It's okay. Say it again. We can clean that up.
Autopiloting, right? If I'm constantly doing that in the negative, that's because it's a subconscious pattern. So one of the things that I will notice a lot with clients, right, is that they'll do this thing where they say, well, it's just me. It's just me. Right? And the truth is, if it's not bringing you where you want to go, it's not you. It's a pattern.
Ooh.
And I think that is one of the most important things people don't, if you talk about people who don't want to hear something I have to say, that's what they don't want to hear. Right? And I've had a lot of people like, leave me, not want to work with me and all that. But I will stand to that. If it is not, we are meant to go where we want to go. We are meant to feel good. We are meant to have things open up for us. We're meant to see not consequences. We're meant to see coincidences. We're meant to see like all these beautiful serendipitous things happen for us. We're meant to see all those things. It's supposed to happen really beautifully. And if it's not, you're getting in your own way. Right? Like God, like I used to be like, so I came from anger.
Me too.
And I would be like, God, what are you doing to me? And I'd be screaming at God.
In prayer or just like
out loud. Yeah. Like my husband would be like, oh my God. My husband's like not spiritual. He's nothing to do with this. And be like, oh, she's screaming at God again. What's going on in there? But I would be screaming like, oh, why are you doing this to me? And I would be like going nuts, right? And God's not doing anything to me. God always wants, God, source, universe, whatever it is, wants me to have my greatest experience on the planet, wants all that for me. So the only thing that's stopping me from achieving that is me, right? And people are like, a perfect example of that is like, well, that's just what I do. Well, is that getting you where you want to go? Because if it's not you. It's just a pattern. Ugh. But it's so hard because our subconscious mind is where all the patterns are held. And so we don't know how to differentiate. We don't know how to understand that it's just a pattern. But we can understand that if we disrupt the pattern.
I literally feel like just like mic drop. Honestly, my mom always says that. It's just been like her line. And even, my mom and I, like our relationship has as many mothers and daughters and
the mother wound.
Like it goes through a lot. It's a roller coaster. You're talking, you're on a pause. And that is probably one of the hardest things for me when she says it, because I'm like, it doesn't have to be. You're choosing to.
She's not choosing. She's not choosing.
You don't think so?
So if it's a pattern in the subconscious mind, we're not consciously choosing.
Got it.
That's why the work has to be done in the subconscious mind.
Okay.
So that's okay. This is actually perfect that you said that, because the issue is that if we could change ourselves consciously, we would all do the things that we said we wanted to do. So all the things that she's working on, she would just change. Everyone would just change and just do it and be done. We're done. The problem is that the pattern is in the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind is the thing that steers the ship. It's the thing that creates everything. It's what rules us 90% of the time. And so I can't just choose. I can choose to do work on myself to change the subconscious mind.
Right.
That I can do. But I can't just choose a different pattern. And even if I do, it probably won't last, because especially the older we get, the more the pattern's been running and running and running and running. And so it's not like, if only, or that I wish it was that simple for us to choose differently. But unfortunately, it has to happen, not even just on the subconscious mind, it would have to happen energetically as well.
Right.
And so that's where the work is. That's where it's daily. Me and you spoke outside. Yes, it's daily. And yes, it's like absolutely daily. And it's like non-negotiable. It's a place for you to like get quiet and clear. And it's also like, let's just be clear. The meditation is also never about the time sitting. It's about the ripple effect it has when you're out and about in the world. It's not like about, I have 20 minutes of relaxation. Sometimes my meditations don't feel good in the body. Like I'm agitated.
Yeah.
I feel like I have stuff I need to do. My mind could be racing. And like, that's a beautiful, if you still sat for that meditation and you didn't get up and you didn't pause to go text or yell at someone or do something, that's an amazing meditation, because you sat in it even though it was incredibly uncomfortable.
I mean, that's a lot of my practice too.
Yeah.
And would you say, for what you would recommend for someone who's looking to really uncover themselves, the first step I guess your first step is to connect with your joy. But when it comes to like cultivating a practice with self, what is your ultimate? I feel like, knowing you, it's meditation.
It's meditation.
Yeah.
It's meditation. And I think that it's daily meditation. And, I love Kundalini meditation. I find it incredibly powerful, whether it be mantra, whether it be breath work. I do a lot of Reiki baths, which, are my moon things that I think are really important, because you're dealing then with the subconscious mind and the energetic body.
I still go back to the one that's saved in your highlights. It's my favorite of your, like, it's so good.
So the reason why those Reiki baths are so, I think, powerful is because you're dealing with the subconscious mind and energetic. It's somewhere.
Okay, we gotta. I don't know.
We'll
put it in the show notes so people can try it.
Yeah. But I think that, like, the reason why that becomes a powerful practice, like, for example, something like that, to do it as a daily, is because you're hitting the subconscious mind and you're hitting the energetic body and you're also hitting the conscious, right? And so like a lot of my Reiki baths are all going to be some form of future self, which means, for example, whatever it is your mom and you are having the issue about, when she's saying it's just her, well, there's probably a version of her that she would prefer to be, that she would prefer to choose, right?
Yeah.
So she's incredibly familiar in the subconscious mind, specifically in the version she is right now. If she can connect daily, subconsciously, with a version of her that is closer to, not perfect, but closer to where she wants to get, and she does that every single day, She winds up carving another road. So I talk about this all the time. So it's like you have a road and you've driven it every day. It's the path you go every single day. And you go and you go. It's carved out. It's perfect. It's gorgeous. Well, if I want to carve a new one, I have to carve it every single day and not let any rock and debris get in because this one's already paved so well. So I'm fighting something that's so easy for me to take while I'm digging a new one.
Ooh.
But I have to do it every day or else the debris gets in, right? And so the more, and I obviously not knowing the details of it, it's like she's incredibly connected with a version of her, which isn't taking her where she wants to go. But there's also another version of her that is going where she wants to go. And she needs to connect with her.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to connect with her, she has to do it on a subconscious level. And so that's sitting with that version of her every single day. And that's anyone who we're talking about who's trying to look for purpose. It's like, so sit with that joy every single day and take yourself through like a meditation where you are walking through your life with that joy. Where are you going? Who are you with? What are you listening to? How do you show up? How do you dress? How do you move your body? Like all those different things. And the more and more you connect with that, then you subconsciously start to make choices that are way more connected with that version of you than the other, because both exist. If you want to be all trippy, like there's tons of different timelines that are happening at once, tons of different versions of us that are like out there doing all the things. And so like we're always trying to jump a level, right? And get to the next level of ourselves. The next level of ourselves is still us, but it's in like a different timeline, if that makes sense. So it's like in a better version of us, right? And so if we can spend time in meditation with that version every single day, then we're going to start to make choices that go with that version. And then from there, so some people can imagine like 10 years from now. I'm not a 10 years from now person.
I'm not either. I'm not a 5 either.
I'm not either.
I'm a right now.
I'm a right now. And tomorrow,
and I like to embody
the
essence of the desires. Like
yes.
That to me is how I, like when people ask me like, what are your goals? I'm like, I don't have a goal.
So you and I used to talk about this.
I don't have a goal.
So you used to come. So actually my first office and my second, I remember conversations in both of these, how like goal numbers and stuff was not at all what drove you.
No.
And it didn't feel good in your body. Right. And you knew it didn't feel good in your body, but like the essence of who that person is, felt really good in your body.
It makes me come to life.
Yeah. And I think so like if you're sitting with that, which you do, it's part of why you've accomplished so much. And like, but each version, like if we go back to like when you were in Gingersnaps, like you wouldn't have envisioned this. Right. And that was 8 years. Okay. So now we know like Gingersnaps was 8 years ago. So it was 8 years ago. It'd be very hard for you to have gotten here. Right. But once we were so now I'm thinking about the session we had in your apartment. And it was when you were doing, what was the first thing you were on? And it was like,
I was on a different platform.
Okay.
Right.
And you were getting ready to leave and you weren't sure to leave. Right. Should you have stayed there? No, you should have evolved and gone to the next thing and then gone to the next thing and then gone to the next thing. Like so on your app, I have tons of my favorite section is fabulous. I will like sometimes send it to people.
Wait, we have to share that.
Yeah. I have a lot of favorites.
Do you have class lists? Do you know how to do that? I'm going to show you how to do that.
You have to show me how to do that. So, but I have ones that it's the brick wall.
And you're going to love the feature I'm building out. I'll tell you after.
Okay. Okay.
This might be live then, but
this is what's interesting, right? Is that I, as someone who's worked with you, right? So there's some where you have the brick wall. That was one version of you. There's some where you have Melissa Wood Health, white behind you, right? Then there's some where you have a white wall with no Melissa Wood Health, I think, right? Then you have this, right? But you kept on, right? And I love all the versions of you. They're like, all of them are great. They're still in my favorites. I do a ton of them all the time. I don't remember my point of this was. Besides my like, how much I love you.
No, think of it while I'll give you a second to think about it. I think you were saying like that you said there was a timeline
so I'm saying that you couldn't think of where you were 8 years. You couldn't get here for 8 years, but each version of you did have you to that next place. So like when you were at the brick wall, I imagine that was like you were renting a studio for the hour, for the day, right?
Yes.
So when you were doing that version of you, you're super happy, you were super excited, but you were also like, what if I had my own office, right? Or what if I had my own studio? Or what if I had this, right? And it kept on growing and growing and growing. But you do so much work on yourself and you do a lot of future self stuff. So it's like you were spending time in the version of the next version of you. And that is whatever we're working on, whatever we're doing, it's like the more we could connect to that 1 month version, 6 month version, 1 year version, I'll say at the most, ahead of us, the more likely we can speed time. And the more likely the journey can feel amazing because we're connecting to the essence of us that's already there. And then it's lining up where we subconsciously already know what moves to make. So it's a little bit more of a direct path.
Mm. It is.
Yeah.
It's so funny to think back to all of those chapters. Like, I mean, even when I was teaching, when I first really started, and I started online, but I would teach some classes in person, you were there.
And I think that I love the view I have of you, which I think I'm so, so blessed to get because I was with you while you were building it all. And I think that some people can look in and be like, oh, but she doesn't know what it's like to first start. Like she doesn't know. And it's like, no, she does know because there was times when we would go to Bandier and it wasn't sold out.
No.
Right. And it wasn't like the greatest experience for you. It wasn't like this really like, you're amazing, you're go, everything in the world, all the external factors say, you've got it, you're doing it, it's all working for you. It wasn't all that way.
That was hard for me, actually.
But guess what? You kept going.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't let the external factors mean that they were going to be the external factors forever. They were just in that moment. And I think that like that's the difference between like people who really succeed in what they're trying to create for themselves and the ones who don't is like they let those moments be those moments.
Right.
They don't let that be the deciding factor. Because if you did, I would be screwed. What would I be doing? Because just so you know, I've tried to cheat on you, Melissa. I've tried to cheat. I don't even think I've gotten through a full workout of cheating on you.
And I don't, like my friends do I would never, but I love when she tells me this.
But I think what's so interesting to me is like, I've tried just because I'm like, let's shake it up. Let's make it a little different, And I just like, it's just not the same. Like and do you know what I realized? How long have I been doing your workouts now?
A long time.
And this just hit me. I was talking to my husband about it. I'm like, there's no music. I'm like, wait a minute. She's getting me to do 45 minutes of a workout class and I don't even have music on.
Because it's your time, right? To be with you, to connect with you, to connect with the muscles.
But that's amazing. Like, I don't think people really I hope I don't like mess it up for people because I don't think we realize that there's no music.
I would say the majority is so happy the way that it is. There's always a small percentage that's like, can you add music? I mean, anyone who knows to be in the subscription business with any music rights is insane.
But forget even that. No, like it's chef's kiss.
I just have always wanted for it to be me. And I think that, listen, there'll be a day sometimes when I'm working out at home and I'm following the weekly schedule because now I'm so committed to my own weekly schedule for 2 reasons. There's such a method to my magic in the way that I create and curate every single week. But there's also this energy around doing it with the community. And that's why I'm really excited about this new feature, and I'll just leave it there, just word community. But it's interesting to do my own workouts, which I did not do before, by the way. Never did. Barely even watched or listened to myself. Why? Because I would cringe. I didn't like the way I would just critique myself. My perfection would come out, and then I wouldn't want to do it. So I moved away from ever really investing in my own product, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because I was scared to listen to myself and not like something. And I would say, take it down, don't post it. And then I did a session with Bill, who I had on the podcast too. I don't know if you listened to that one. It's so good. He coaches on media and public speaking.
Yeah.
And
I just gave his information to someone because
so
of you.
wonderful. But he said to me, do you think any football player, basketball player, any athlete would ever get back on the court or the field if they didn't watch their replays from the game before? It just clicked.
Yeah.
And he said, your art and your craft is teaching and guiding. And the only way that you are ever going to get better and to grow is to listen to yourself. We're not looking for critiques. We're learning that, okay, we could sharpen that cue, right? And it's changed me. I think I'm the best teacher I've ever been because of doing my own work.
100%. I had the same thing with you. So I teach like all these classes on the moons and stuff, and I would never do them. And like there'd be meditations that I'd be like, okay, just like let them do them. And then like I would never revisit, go on the portal and then like, see ya. I don't want to look at it. And then, and now I do them with it. And it also means, I think one of the beautiful parts also is like recognizing like, oh, I said that weird.
All the time. I say things backwards.
Still helpful.
Yeah.
Still helpful. I don't need to be perfect.
No.
And I think that one of the beautiful parts about that is that it gives the watcher, the listener, the freedom to also not be perfect and to know that like perfection is a lie. Like there is no such thing. And so it's like we're always can become better. And I think that watching ourselves helps us to obviously become more polished and become better, but also to like hear our own stuff. And like what you and I are saying is really helpful.
Yeah.
And we should hear it because there's a voice in our heads, whether you have someone who actually hears the voice or sort of like sees the voice in your head. Why not fill it with things that are incredibly helpful and allow yourself to own the fact that I'm one of those things.
I love that. And I love that just like taking a moment to appreciate our own gifts, like our own.
And being proud of ourselves.
I know.
You know? And like, I think that's, I started, so I didn't start listening to my workshops until like last year. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
And I literally would like be speaking to him like, that was brilliant.
Oh, I say that all the time.
I'm like, oh my God. And it's like really important. And I think there's like this weird thing that happens as humans where like we feel like it's too much an ego to be proud of ourselves. And that it means that like, you know, there's something wrong with us. But when in reality, like we should be our biggest fans, because if not, if there's something that we're not proud of, guess what? We can work on it.
Right.
And so like we should be really, really proud of what we're putting forward because it's our choice. And we always can like make it better. And I think that we're all here to make the world better, whatever that looks like, whatever like people think purpose means it's in your career. And maybe for some people it is, and for some people it's not. But like everything is a ripple effect. And whoever you encounter, whether it is the person who you see at the grocery store, whether it be your spouse, your child, like the way you interact with them has an effect on them. And so when you are doing your work and you're proud of yourself and you're feeling good, you know, you're light, you're bouncy, you're expressive, you are expansive, right? And so anyone who comes near you gets to like be in that light.
You're the most expansive I've ever witnessed you.
I'm doing the real work.
No, when you walked in, I was like, oh, watch out.
Thank you.
No,
but it came from, but it had to hit that year of me going the other way. Like
I had the same year last year, by the way.
Yeah, I think a lot of us
to a T. Like the most empty, the most unfulfilled. And I had to look at the why, and it was painful to understand that it was all because of my choices.
Yeah. And while it's also it's so painful, but it's also so empowering.
I wanted to blame it on everybody else. I tried. Yeah. And then the divine was like, no, honey, that's you.
And what I'm realizing now, like I think a lot of, and again, I started doing like the deeper work, let's say like the end of last year. The way I know it's working is that the external things aren't the things that are telling me it's working. It's all the internal, right?
Yeah.
I'm not waiting. Like the external things aren't the same as what they were. And I've never feel freer, more expansive, more in my right. And then also it's like you have this knowing, it's like the cause becomes more important than the effect. And like you're no longer looking for the outcome to decide what move you make. You're just always going from a place of knowing that it's coming from, God, source, universe, creator, whatever it is you want to use, that like, you're like, I'm just like a version of that. And as long as I'm in that space, like you can almost feel it, like you can literally feel like your heart opening and beaming. And when you spend more time in that, you also recognize when it's not doing that.
Oh, yeah.
And it feels so different. And
the days are hard. The days are harder, right?
Everything's harder.
Yeah.
Every moment is harder. And again, like it's not about the outside stuff, because if you're in an expansive, beautiful place, like you can have things happen that aren't what you want, but you can still hold the light. Yeah. Because you could know that an up level is coming soon. I joke around when I talk to Jen, I'm like, a big up level is coming because it's awful to grab. And I'm like, it can only mean.
I felt it, by the way. I knew it when we were away after the holidays, what we were coming home, and I was like, something really, I can't even explain it. I knew something was happening. And obviously with the tragedy of the fires in LA, like it was just so crazy how I felt something. And obviously I didn't know if it was that, and it could be something else too. But just this energy around, we don't just have to get to work. We have to remain in our work.
Yes.
Right? Because I think that is when the unfolding, the revelations, all of these massive shifts start to occur in here that
affect
everything here.
And then it like becomes this beautiful thing where like, even though I'm saying earlier that like the outside things are the motivator for me, I let them motivate me and then they get to go away. And then in here still feels the same regardless of what. And so if I'm letting like that shiny thing be the motivator, me getting it doesn't determine if this is open. This is just open.
Yeah.
And so even if that I get a detour, the detour doesn't take me in the dark place because I'm not waiting for the outcome. Right? The outcome doesn't determine
not anymore
the source of my openness and my heart space. Like it is the entire journey of it. So even when something goes wrong, I can really sit there and be like, one of the teachers who I'm working with said to me recently, he said, I was like, I have faith. I have such faith. And he said, but are you certain? And I was like, well, yeah, like I know, I believe. No, I said, I believe. That's what it was. I said, I believe this to be true. He's like, but do you know? Because those are two different things. And I never really thought about the fact that like they're close, but they're also so far away. And when you get to the knowing, and he's a Kabbalah teacher, right? And so like the knowing is this understanding that everything is made for me. Everything is happening for me. There isn't one thing that is going to happen to me that isn't for my benefit. Now, if I want to make things happen for me quicker in a good way, I'm going to realize that more and more. So then I don't go into a darker path, right?
Right.
But no matter what happens, if I can always remember that these things are for me, then it makes like each wrong turn still feel beautiful because it's just like an opportunity for me to connect more to my light. Oh, I lost it for a second. Great. I can find it again.
Mm-hmm.
Over and over and over again. And it's like the same way I say like the meditation is like for, it's like a gym, right? It's like you're doing the muscle of the mind, being able to see that you can move your focus. It's the same thing. It's like when you can feel yourself in the darkness, like it's a great exercise. It's a rep for you to bring yourself back to the light constantly over and over again. And the more you do that, the more you can feel when you're out of sync. And it can happen like within 1 second. But again, when you're doing the work on a subconscious level, you can easily get back to a habit that takes you right back to the light. So it doesn't feel
forced. I do it every
forced.
day.
Yeah.
Like I feel
every
that
day, every
darkness
moment.
every day. Like the moment I open my eyes, it's like dark. And then I'm like, all right, let's lock in. Like we can bring that light out through our actions, through aligning our actions to even just the simplest ritual to bring you to a place of like being with yourself to feel, a little bit of light shine in.
And again, it's like the ritual practices that people also don't understand is that there's a lot of subconscious stuff that's happening in the ritual, which is why it's so powerful. Right. And so like one of the things when we talk about lighting the sage or doing the things, like part of it is like when I'm feeling heavy, right, I'll grab my sage and I will start doing it. And part of what happens is that subconsciously I'm like, oh, what's sage? Sage is a clearing. What does it mean? It's making me lighter. It's removing this feeling, this thought, whatever it is that I'm trying to sage through. And so subconsciously, not just consciously, both of those, and then energetically, because it's sage, all of those things then start to clear me. But ultimately, since 90% of us is the subconscious mind, the association that I have with sage clearing clears on the subconscious level. And so rituals are so important because the subconscious mind associates. And so every time we associate with that thing, it actually is. And then like when we were talking outside, it's like, then you're doing the Palo Santo. And for you, it's like bringing in blessings. Great. So then
I think of like sealing that, bringing in, sealing that positive
and so
aura.
when you're doing that, that's what it's doing.
Right.
Because you've told it that. So like I have all the crystals and all the things. And again,
I'm a crystal lover.
We have,
because of you.
We have that class from like, it's probably like 7.5 years ago.
You guys, it's on
class.
YouTube. We did this clearing and crystal class.
My hairdresser cut bangs. I have curly hair. It was curly at the time. It was not okay. It wasn't my regular hairdresser. And when I went back to my hairdresser right after that, she sees me and she goes, what happened? His license should be revoked. She's like, I'll cut you bangs. But if you can get over my bang situation, it's a good thing on crystals. But one of the things that we always talk about, it's like, yes, like rose crystal is love. And yes, these are quartz crystals and they are for expansion and stuff. But ultimately,
I thought it was selenite.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, it was grounding.
Right, but that's okay, because if that's what you associate with it, then that's what it does for you. And I think that a lot of people have to understand that, like, my first email was my reality. That's what my reality at Earthlink. I'm like aging myself. No one knows what Earthlink is. But it was and so it's like we live in our own realities that we create. And so it's all because of association in the subconscious mind, which means that if I associate this as selenite and I think that means it's clearing and grounding, then guess what? That's what it's doing to me.
Right.
Right. And it's like, it's all of that. And so it's the same way that like we can make something negative, we can make something positive. And so a lot of the rituals and these things that we do with crystals and all that stuff, while there is real meaning to them and there are like stuff that is true qualities to them, also, if we believe it, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important, which is why, again, like you believing in possibilities and you believing in yourself and believing all the things you can create. And like right now, the meditation I'm teaching in my group is like the impossible is possible because it is.
It is.
And you can literally witness so many things around you that you're watching all these other people and you're like, because they believed it. A lot of people told them no, but they kept going. I am sure a lot of people told you no.
Oh my God. Yes. Still. Constantly,
and it's great because you get to prove them wrong.
Right. And I think too, it's like, I used to get really down when things didn't work, right? When you're like, but now I'm like, I swear to you, if I lose the biggest deal, I'm like, thank you. Thank you for guiding me, because I know that something else is actually aligned for me.
I just had something happen that is like old Jamie, like probably even like last year Jamie would have literally been like, it's all done. Like it's all done. Like and gone down a terrible moment. And I'm literally like, it's not even false. It's not even me trying to get myself there. Like the second it happened, it was like, free.
Mm-hmm.
And it was curious. I think that's the other thing is like when we know we're not in a space of, let's call it believing or knowing, it means that we're really controlling. right? And that's a good sign to you. If you think that if you're trying to control a lot of the stuff and you think that you know the way everything's supposed to happen, I promise you're not in faith, right? And so if I can open myself up, if I know that I'm in a good place, I'm like really like surrender, do my play, do my stuff. Like surrender doesn't mean sit there and do nothing. Take your actions, do your things, have desires, and like maybe they're not like exact goals, but have areas that you want to move to and things that you want to do, but then also have an open hand while you do it, and trust that if something falls out, it's only because something more for you was supposed to be there. Because we get the things if we believe we get the things.
It's so true. And sometimes I think when you're in that resistance and the challenges continue to reoccur, right? Like life is just a series of challenges. But I think when you're maybe just like down and out and you keep getting knocked at the knees, there is such an opportunity to look at yourself. And I say this with so much compassion and empathy because God knows I've been there, but there's one common denominator, and it's you. And as hard as it is to look at why things are happening, I think it has the capability and the possibility to completely transform your life when you take like that ownership, and also just really lean into the like, thank you. Like, thank you for showing me. Thank you for guiding me. And what else do I need to see? Like, let's keep moving.
And knowing that you might not even, like, you just keep on asking source, whatever, like for the answer, like, tell me what else I need to know. Show me,
show me,
because
guide me.
sometimes when it's all taken away, you don't have the answer right there.
No.
Sometimes you get it sooner. Sometimes it's longer, but it's like, I trust you. Right. It's like my new thing, like, and not even my new thing, like this is actually, I've always sealed my prayers, is I trust you. We got this. Right. And that's like a big thing for me. And it's like really recognizing this idea that we can have it. And the only thing that will stop us from having it is forgetting that we can.
Oh, that is so good. That is, you have given so many incredible, just like, oh my God, the teasers I'm pulling from this. Seriously, just like the things that we maybe don't want to hear, but if you can hear it and you can really let it land, wow.
I recently did a newsletter, and it was like one of my favorite things.
Okay, first of all, I read no newsletters. I'm going to be honest with you. I read every newsletter you put out. I love your newsletters. You guys, she talks all about like the new moons and the full moons, and she has these beautiful practices that she shares around them. Highly recommend.
Thank you.
No, because you're my person for that. I'm just like, what are we doing?
I really believe in the new moons and the full moons. And I say this to everyone, even if you don't, it doesn't matter. It's happening at a subconscious level. But you can still work with them, because basically each new and full moon is going to be under a different zodiac. And each zodiac is like a different part of you, right? It's a different facet of you. And so you go through the year working on new moons, which is going to be about setting intentions, thinking about what you want, creating, planting it. And you do that for 2 weeks leading up to a full moon, which is going to be releasing, making space, letting go of all the things that are blocking you from that. And you keep on doing it depending on like what sign it is. You have a little bit of a different aspect. And so I do believe very much in working with the energy of the moons. But even if you don't, just the fact that you're like working on those different aspects of yourself and you're seeing it holistically through a year is, I think, one of the most important things that you can do. That's first of all. But the newsletter I'm talking about in particular was when I say, I'm not for everyone, but if I am for you, I'm going to change your life. And I think that like that took a long time for me to be comfortable with, because I'm not for everyone. Right. And that made me sometimes feel like I was lesser than. And also sometimes made me feel like I was better than. And both of those are incorrect. I just am. right? And I think that like the people who are for more people, great. The Juice Press did amazing things. It changed so many people's lives. Generally, people are so much healthier because Juice Press was in their lives, right? And so there's nothing wrong with it. I also changed people's lives, right? But it's like understanding that another thing, like when you know you're out of alignment is when you think you're better than everyone else.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about like one of my biggest problems is that.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I say like, oh, I don't like that about myself. Great, change it.
Right.
Notice it. So you notice it's like that. So again, because I'm doing the work on myself much more. And one of the greatest things about not doing work on myself last year and then coming back to it and seeing what it does for me is like recognizing, yeah, we all need to be doing work on ourselves.
Oh my God, please.
Like we all need they might not be me, because I might not be for you, but get the coach. Like do the thing, like do the work on yourself, whatever that looks like, and make sure it's uncomfortable.
Oh,
because if it's not uncomfortable, then someone's placating you and you're not changing.
It's so true. And same thing with therapy. Where can everyone find you, work with you? Give us all your stuff, because
Instagram is organicallyjamie.com. No, Instagram is just organicallyjamie. And then my website is organicallyjamie.com.
Subscribe to her newsletter.
You're welcome. You can join me on the moons. I have Guided by the Moons, which will change your life if you do the work.
It's true. And I love the bath ones.
You get a bath in each workshop. So that's how you find me. And then when I'm not doing stuff like this, I'm working out too, Melissa stuff.
I love you. I'm so happy that we made this happen.
Me too.
This was an incredible episode.
Thank you.
Seriously. I'm so proud of you.
I'm so proud of you. Like, I just want to take a minute to tell everyone that really getting to witness how I met you when you would have 2 Caesar salads. She would get 2 Caesar salads at Organic Jamie. She would sit at the wooden tables and she would be working on her thing. I think you were health coaching that, right?
I was health coaching.
Like you were doing some of your training still and watching where you are. And like, I've had so many people, because you've been so generous in sharing me through the years that we've worked together. And they'd be like, so like, is she really like that? Yes. Yes, she is. She really is like that. Her heart is as big as you see it, like it is. And what I think is so funny, if you're okay with me sharing this, is that I also laugh because they're like, she's just always happy. I'm like, are you watching? I'm like, she's literally crying. She's literally telling you. I'm like, you are choosing to like, she's just like, her life is perfect. I'm like, did you hear her today? She was crying. And I just think it's so funny because it's this perfect idea that like people do this thing where they want to take themselves out because they want to make that other person on the pedestal and think that they can't have it. And so it's like, but she doesn't have bad days. Yet she literally just told you about the days she had.
The days can be dark.
Yeah. And it's like,
so can the thoughts.
You talk about it, right? And so it's like an interesting thing how like people want to put someone on a pedestal to have a reason as to why they can't create the thing. But you actually, if everyone's really, really listening, like you're the most beautiful, expansive version because you're like, no, I can hold 2 things at once. I could be incredibly in love with my husband, my family, my children, and my career and everything I do. And fuck.
It's okay. Say it. Give it.
Fucking hate my life in the moment.
Yeah.
Like, I can have like, I have a 4-year-old and a loving husband and a beautiful apartment, a great nanny, and all that stuff. And sometimes, like last year in particular, I'd be screaming, I fucking hate you, God, what are you doing? Like, why me?
Yes.
And like, recognizing in the same breath of why me as I sit in like my beautiful life, recognizing that like you still can have moments where you are hitting the ground and you are allowed to have those. So whoever's listening to this too, know that like, even if you have incredible privileges in your life, you're still allowed to feel for yourself and you're still allowed to have compassion for yourself when you have bad days and have bad moments and have bad thoughts. Like we're all in a different version of the human experience and we all have different journeys to be on. And so just because you might have privileges in certain areas of your life doesn't mean that like your pain isn't the same as someone else's. And like honor that because have compassion and know that your pain is just as allowed as someone else's.
Amen.
Amen.
I love you.
I love you.
I really just like, give me some love.